Thinking of investing, working, or starting a business in the cannabis industry? We've got you covered right here on Plant Problems. Hosted by Tony Frischknecht, Plant Problems takes a different approach to cannabis than what you're seeing and hearing from the mainstream media. Come along with Tony and be in the know about how to invest, work, or start a cannabis business. Let's get the show started with your host, Tony Frischknecht.
Hey everyone, this is Tony Frischknecht with Plant Problems. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day out there today. I've got an interesting topic for us today. There's some stuff that you that are new to the cannabis world, if you're not experiencing it, you will. Even you hemp guys out there. That is conflict that are happening in your business or around your business. It can come in so many ways. I've had experiences with bad landlords. I've had bad experiences with business partners not being able to resolve problems and issues. I've spent somewhere in the neighborhoods of $400,000 on attorneys in the past. So I know that you guys out there are going to encounter something, hopefully nothing nearly as bad as what I have, but I've got a gentleman on today that I think can shed some real light on conflict and how to resolve this. Because once you start getting the attorneys involved and they hourly rate just starts going through the roof. I mean, you can pay as little as $200 an hour, and I know guys paying $700 to $1,000 per hour. That adds up extremely quick. So my next guest, he's an executive consultant for corporate culture development. He's also a podcast host for Purchasing Truth, business trainer, and a master of conflict resolution. With over 50 years of consulting expertise, his impact is being felt daily inside of the world's top business schools, Fortune 500 companies, nonprofit organizations, and countless government institutions throughout the world. He has a unique and extensive knowledge for developing and implementing successful programs that encourage people nationwide. Please help me welcome Bill Stierle to the program. Bill, how you doing today?
Tony, I'm doing great. Happy to be here and to contribute to your tribe. We're going to have some fun in understanding why people think the way they do, why people behave the way they do, and also to reduce conflicts and tensions. So we're looking to get some really good tools in front of people so they can, do something about it.
Well, as a startup, when you're going into the situation, you think about what troubles you're going to have building your company, but you don't realize all the personal issues that are going to come up with not only the people working next to you, let's say in your office, but, customers, like if you're in the retail world.
Exactly.
These things are always happening and it's really easy to snap. And
it is.
The cannabis industry, I'm not sure if you know how much pressure is put on us as business owners.
A lot of pressure on business owners.
And business owners in general have it.
Yeah, but this is a different level. It's a different level.
There's an extra added layer of pressure that's happening. And, I think having you on it is, I hope to expose some of this stuff that maybe people are fighting with right now. There are people that are feeling that, man, I'm at a loss.
Yeah.
I really don't know how to deal with this person. I know I can hire an attorney and maybe that's my next step because I just don't have time and I don't want to do it.
Right.
What do you say to those type of people that are in that situation or they're just at their wits' end?
Yeah, the exasperation and the anger or the frustration, the aggravation that goes with a conflict, all of those different feelings are really trying to tell the business owner about the circumstance they're in is they might not be getting fairness or they might not be getting respect or consideration. Meanwhile, the person is just clicking off the clock with their attorney and you're clicking off the time clock with your attorney and you're going like, how did I get in this space?
Yeah, exactly.
And then how do I get out of this space? And that's what I'm hoping that's going to be the kind of the number one thing that we could take a look at today is to how can we effectively get off of that gerbil wheel of conflict, especially when attorneys are involved, so that, we can shorten the time that we spend with them so that we're not running up and losing the money out of the back end that we've been really just working really hard as a business owner to really try to maintain or to hold on to and to get it, really energetically to get it to go better What can we say or do differently than got us into this spot? And that's really a good thing for us to focus on today.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because the margins in cannabis are getting really tiny. They're starting to really shrink up. And that's the more mature the market is getting, the smaller the margins are getting. So if you got $5,000 or $10,000 going out a month, I mean, not only one, maybe that's what your business was supposed to pay you for your services,
Right.
but you were supposed to make a profit too. So
Right.
I like the fact of let's show you how to save your profit.
Let's show you how to save your profit. That's right. That's right. Because there are some conflicts that we can go into and go through, and we don't have to spend any money on it. We did have to spend some time, or we did have to get some skill in learning a new way to speak to this person and picking our battles, picking our battles that are going to be more beneficial for our business rather than picking a battle that we're trying to get respect or even fairness out of. But all of a sudden we lost a lot of cash because we're spending money just because this person said or did something. Instead of getting out quicker and saving the dough, we get invested. Our emotions get invested. We are fighting for something and immediately we're inside a paper bag and we're swinging and it's not getting us anywhere because it's too tight.
Well, I'll lay out an example for you and maybe we can take it from there.
Wonderful. Yes, great.
So, I've spoken a lot about picking the right business partner. That's easier said than done.
There's some challenges for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I won't go too far into that, but that's a small part of this too. But you're always going to have conflict with any relationship you're in if you're being true and honest to the relationship, right?
Right. Conflict is inherent. My favorite quote around this is, in our life as a human being, pain is a guarantee. Suffering is optional.
I like it. Yeah. Suffering is optional.
Your pain, you stub your toe. Pain is the right experience. Suffering is optional. Well, where does suffering take place then? Suffering actually takes place in the storytelling after. Suffering takes place in the meaning that's created after the stubbing of the toe. I stubbed the toe because my son left his toy on the ground and he's 12 and he should know better. Who's suffering? I am. Who's going to suffer? Kid is. What's going to suffer? The connection of relationship with the kid. Now, instead of there being a nice coaching moment between a parent and a child, it turns into World War III.
Pick your crap up. I just stepped on it, right? And all of a sudden,
Right. And I'm mad as hell about it. And unless I get mad about this, you never do anything about that. That's not fully true. Because as soon as we get them in touch with the pain that we're going through, they go like, oh my gosh, my dad was in a lot of pain. My mom was in a lot of pain. And what happens is, and they were a lot of pain. And unless I do something, suffering is coming in my direction. And I don't want to suffer. And I don't want to make them suffer.
Hey everyone, Tony Frischknecht here with Plant Problems. I want to thank you guys for listening in, your why do this show. And I also want to thank you for leaving me a review, taking your precious 15 seconds of your time and spending it with me and sharing me what I do well and what I can improve on. So please go to plantproblem.com and leave those questions, comments, or reviews. All right, back to the show. So back to a business setting.
Great.
Let's, for example, you've gotten into an argument with your business partner.
Yes.
Let's say he is running the retail store and you're running the grow.
Right.
And there has been some money missing that didn't get counted up right.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they just forgot to tell you that detail and you don't know that you just lost $500 that day.
Right.
Where did it go? Well, the guy that's running the grow operation is coming and saying, dude, that's all the money we made today and you just lost it. Why didn't you tell me this? Or can we figure something out? Or why can't we work on this? And you can do that once or twice when continually have problems like this. That's where you go into that suffering, right? That suffering is just consistently happening.
Yeah. So the suffering, the pain part of it is that we don't have the money we would both like. The suffering is, I'm not sure and I'm trusting you about, did you just lose the money? Did somebody steal the money?
Did you steal the money?
Are you pocketing money? See how naturally you went there? It's great. And that's where the suffering is, because now you're not just dealing with the loss of the money. There wasn't enough retail sales that day or whatever. But you're dealing with I am starting to cultivate doubt and skepticism about trust with my partner. Who's creating it? I am. Is it true? We don't know yet. We don't know if it's true yet. If trust, is missing, if truth is not there. We don't know quite yet. The best way to start the conflict is to apply a very healthy emotion. And that emotion is curiosity. You got to go there first. I feel curious about the number of customers you had today. I feel curious about the number of units that were things. I feel curious about the tracking we have in place when I put the product in the bag and we put a label on it. Is anybody keeping track with that level? And then the retailer says, well, I did take, 25 bags of this thing and I did put a thing on it, but after a little while, after 2 or 3 days, I noticed that one of the things had mold on it. I'm making up a story. And I wasn't able to sell that unit. So even though you made it, it never made it to the retail revenue part. So notice I'm staying in curiosity before I start cultivating the need for truth and trust not being met. You know what? I might need some information.
Okay, so going more as an information, okay, maybe more of I'd love to help to figure out what happened to this money.
Yes, that pursues the need for information. Correct.
Okay.
Instead of creeping in the need for truth and trust. When an industry it's not like this industry hasn't had trouble with truth and trust in the past.
The entire industry has been truth and trouble.
They have trouble with truth and trust and the need for privacy and the need for fairness, because people create all kinds of mental backlashes with truth and trust and fairness. They just do. They do. And it wasn't like at the end of the alcohol prohibition, they didn't have this same problem, because they did. The same problems that this industry is going through is literally the same from a illegal prohibition thing to a legal, soon to be on multiple corners next to your liquor store. And if they get into the business, that's a whole nother problem. It's like all of a sudden.
Believe it or not, they already are. I mean, there's definitely some movement, but no, you're right. I mean, it is following a lot of the same trends. And
that's right.
Even down to the regulations where each state has its own regulation.
So it's regulation stuff. That's right. That's right. See, the state has a fantasy too. The state has a fantasy is that, all that illegal money that used to be made, we could tax that. And that's important for us to get this business under the fold. The only trouble with that mindset is that they have the belief all of that money. Meanwhile, as soon as it becomes all of these new distributors that are out there, all these new producers are out there, the margins start shrinking, the way they do. And we want to have a way to speak to the disconnect that human beings have with their own beliefs. And that's something we started our show with, which is how do people think and why do people behave and what are our beliefs about things, and start upgrading as business owners, upgrading our language and about how we're thinking about these things. So we can be honest with ourselves about what the reality is, and honest with ourselves about, what the taxes are going to be and what are we paying out in retail and those kinds of things. So very, very, very important.
You bring up a good point when it comes to dealing with the regulators, right? You've got to speak their language for one.
Right.
And there can be a lot of conflict back and forth there. I've seen it in the beginning stages in Colorado, because you had these activist people that were make it legal. And that's, they understood that they wanted to listen to the next step. Right.
Right.
And so there were a lot of, I hope that other states are listening to this to take advantage of this. If they're sitting there talking to you at the table and they're like, all right, Mr. Businessman, we want to see how this works. You need to take that next step and lay it out for them so that they understand how you're going to be a legal business. They're not looking for legalization. They know that that's a part of it, but there needs to be some more in-depth talk as business owners in those communities saying, how are we going to approach these so we can be, let's say, bipartisan, right? So we can help them with their problems too.
That's right. See, there is, as you may have noticed in the nation, a communication problem between parties. There is a communication problem between business owners and politicians. There is a communication problem between business owners and their customers and their staff. There's some communication problems. People don't know how to speak safely about things. So let me give you a really dangerous sentence, and then let me give you a really safe sentence. The dangerous sentence is, if you don't allow us to regulate, we are going to XYZ. Arrest, take your things, fine you, put you in jail, whatever the threat is that now comes from it's been legalized with a set of rules. What the end user doesn't know is legalization does not mean it's free and anybody gets to do anything they want. Legalization means you are now a business that is going to have to live under the business rules and ways that things are grown, quality control, amount of stuff. And regulation can kill businesses if it's not done in cooperation and collaboration with the business. Of course, some businesses get stuck into, well, we don't want to collaborate or cooperate. We're going to take this advantage and run this out as quickly as possible and make the cut. And so what? We wreck the business for everybody else. We're first in. We're going to get our investors our money back. We sold them on this. We got $10 million to do a build. It's like, it's really.
My hope is that, my listeners out there in the audience, that they're really thinking that long-term level, because I did see that. I did see a number of people just basically what they called blowing it up for the next 12 to 24 months. And then they're going to get out, right?
Right.
It's a lot easier to get out than most people know. Unfortunately, the law enforcement and DEA can still try to wrap you in other things.
They can.
And so if you guys are out there now thinking about, well, I'm just going to do this for a short period and then I'm zoom out, it's dangerous territory.
It's dangerous territory. Dangerous territory because it's a different set of rules. And for an industry that has been a very backroom, backdoor kind of industry, underground industry, what happens is that when something like this comes up and becomes legal, you've got to go with, if you want to stay in it long, you've got to go with high integrity, high truth, and high trust. Those three things have got to lead the piece, which is find the best detailed type accountant that keeps track of these things and has a tax savvy to them that they said, this is the way the business runs, and I run my business by the books. This business is crystal clean. Why is it crystal clean? Because here's all their expenses. All of those things fit this specific code. Here are all of this. Here's the risk money. Here's their development. Here's their cash flow. Here's their salaries. Nothing here to see, Mr. Regulator Inspector. Nothing here to see. In fact, there's nothing here to see because we're allowing you to see everything.
And that's also going to come into play if you're looking at trying to sell your business, right? If you're looking at opening up to a corporate, you deal with a ton of corporate guys, and those guys are looking for transparency because they're not going to buy you unless they see it. Especially once this goes completely legal, they're going to be looking for that. I know we're kind of going off track a little bit, but I think it's super important that people understand that there's so many multiple things that this will do for you, having your books in place, being able to make it easy for you to sell. It's easy. I heard something the other day. It's easy to start a business, but now try to sell one. Figure that out.
Right.
Because it's a whole different ballgame.
Right. So let's spend a minute on that. Okay. All right. Here's my recommendation for all the business owners out there. 1 minute on this one is that you have 4 different binders, and each one of these different binders are tracking 4 different business elements. 4. The first one is going to be the obvious one, which is I need my financial books so that I have a clear piece on taxes. I have a clear piece on the regulations that fit with those tax codes. And my first 3 binder regarding finances nails it. Okay. The second binder has 2 specific divisions in it. One has to do with customers. These are the type of people that I sell to. Here's what comes into the shop. Or if you're a wholesaler, here's the retailers that I'm engaging with. And this is my list of people. Now, the second divider in that is your staff, the people that are in this organization. What is their job description? What do they do from 9 to 5? How is they come in, and what do they punch in at, and what do they do from when they punch in to punch out? That is their performance evaluation. It's their thing that allows you to say, this is a good worker. This one here needs some more coaching. They need some more leadership, blah, blah, blah. The third binder is a binder of marketing and strategic planning for the future. How are these projections going to work between the finance piece and the people piece? I got this money piece and I got this people piece. And my marketing is going to do projections. Here's how this thing is going to grow, and this is how I'm going to do capture. And then the last one, and the most important binder, is your operations manual. The more money you make, the more money you can, if you would like your business to sell for the most money possible, that operations notebook, it's called the green how to do things. It's where am I having my systems in place? Can my people plug and play? And the answer is, well, if the operations are clean, all that you do is you hire the new person and say, this is your job description, this is your performance evaluation, and here's the set of tasks that you do inside this workspace. Those 4 binders will change a business from something that's sold at $1 million to something that's sold at 5 million or 10 million. It's how well those things are positioned.
I think you're correct in that what happens to a lot of people is they get to that point where they're talking to investors or people that are going to purchase their company, and they're like, well, we don't have that. We don't have that. How am I going to make that up? And you end up dragging yourself along and wasting a bunch of your time and their time because you don't have this stuff in place. And until I went through it and experienced it, I didn't really realize how vital it is for your company to have these 4 binders, right? And so,
so true.
You get caught up in running the day to day, and you don't think about these binders. And
that's correct.
You're 100% correct. I think that you goes from 1 times multiple to a 5 times multiple because all of a sudden they can move you, the business owner, right out of the way, and they can start playing chess and put their
optimize. Right. They're playing chess. That's the right thing. They're putting their pieces in, and some of this systems, they're going like, hey, this system, I am buying this company because this system will not only work that it's kicking butt on this company, but I can go buy 5 other companies, use their system in this other company and turn all those around. I got enough cash to go shopping now. And so anyways, so I have one person on my team. He is an operations guy. And I just say, Dave, we need an operations manual in the next 6 to 9 months so we can sell it in 18. Are you up for it? He goes, well, let me see what they got, and then he comes in and says, yeah, I can do it in 6. I can do it in 9. And most of the time you can do it in 9, so I know the things. And now all of a sudden you have one of your binders made for you. As a entrepreneur, don't think you need to create these binders yourself.
You don't have to create them yourself? Are you serious?
No, you do not. You can actually outsource every one of these binders. And that's the funny part about it is the entrepreneur thinks, I need to be creative about. That is not a good sentence necessarily.
And most of the time, it's nothing that you're good at, right?
Nothing you're good at. Nothing you're good at.
With technology and the way that things have opened up, it's really opened my eyes over the last few years on what you can do with video just to transfer that information over to your operations guy that's going to be building it. And it can save you a heck of a lot of time. And all you have to do is know how to hit the record button and hold it on you while you talk about how to do this process of the system, right? And so, I don't want people to get too overwhelmed with these details, but there's things out there now that we have never had as a society that are cheap.
That's right.
Usually the big corporate business, they can pull this off because they've been able to do it for years because they have a large marketing budget or they have a large, they just have a slush fund in there for this type because they understand that it's a part of building their business.
Right.
You guys that are out there like, oh man, I don't know where I'm going to come up with the money for this. It's not expensive. It's something that, as Bill is just saying, you can go from 6 to 9 months to 12 months out as long as you plan for it.
Right.
And you can simplify this and find operation. How hard was it for you to find an operations guy that was like, I can totally do this? Was it somebody you came across? Was it somebody that you were introduced to?
Well, that's the best part about it is there's people, very, very talented people that are waiting for a gig like that. That is not necessarily a hard find. Finding the right person to do it, it has some tweaking to it. So sort of like, who do I want to get? Well, I might want to pull somebody not from the meat industry, but from the corn industry where they're growing corn and growing crops and say, hey, how did you guys optimize over there? And they say, oh, yes, I can optimize this crop, and all of a sudden it's like, you can optimize the crop. Oh yeah, this is what we did with corn and this is what we can do with cannabis. They can move down the path. And meanwhile, they're just tired of doing corn and they're ready for a different industry. They're going like, or as industries get more competitive or open up to the worldwide marketplace, all of a sudden it's, I don't want to compete with somebody with a piece of corn coming out of Mexico. I want to compete in this environment because, quite frankly, I'm going to up level my skills. I'm going to bring my skills to a new industry that need my skills. And that's the nice part about entrepreneurialism and capitalism from this perspective is find the talent. See if you can find the talent that's going to fill the notebooks so that when the person shows up, and I know I'm doing very old school using a 3-ring notebook, which is really funny.
Well, it doesn't matter. You're just laying out how, at the very basics, how you could do it if you want to do it really basic.
That's right. And generally speaking, what does it take me to, design those things? I've designed, new educational programs in 2 weeks and ran them out into the environment and got traction. So operations is something that's so vital. You can imagine what it would be like is just getting support in that area where you've never had to write down what's the difference, what's the growing cycle different from this plant to this plant over here. What is the germination? When does the flower come up? When does the fruiting body show up? All those different things that have a nuance to them that they have, and the listener has it. You have it in your brain. You just got to get somebody to extract it out, put it on a piece of paper, and then you can duplicate it.
And it's no different. Again, it's no different than any other business. Having this black market to legalization, that gray area, this is just the zone we're in right now. And most of the country is in that. I still find myself very fortunate to be in one of the more mature markets because it helps me to teach and share my information with you guys out there that this is all normal business stuff, but it's not stuff that somebody's just going to come up and teach you. You have to go out and find this stuff. You can't be lazy about it. I could talk to you about this forever, but I do want to get on to
so true.
Saving some money in a major conflict.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Situation. If you haven't been in it, I'm glad you haven't, but you can easily start having lawsuits flying between business partners. And then you have to go to what they call arbitration, right?
Arbitration or mediation?
Mediation, arbitration. And they will, just to lay it out for everyone, it's 1 to 2 days of sitting in offices and the attorneys are on the clock. You've got 6 or 7 hours per day at your $400 to $700 an hour attorney. And this is 2 different rooms, right? Depending on...
Well, there's a couple different ways to do it. I tend to, as a mediator and a high conflict, person, I tend to put people in the room.
Oh, all into the room at once.
I got the attorneys, I got people in the room. Meanwhile, the reason why is because I'm going to reduce the conflict from both parties. Reduce the conflict. Now, the attorneys in that room could be adversarial to me. The reason why is if I solve this too soon, they don't get as much money.
Wow. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
So they'll start throwing grenades in.
That sounds like a terrible spot to be in.
And I just gently put the pin back in the grenade and set the grain on the table. It's like, you can try this grenade. I can see that you threw it and you pulled the pin, but I happen to have, a set of pins right here that I can put back in, and do you want to save time, your life energy, or do you want to try to squeeze every nickel out in this and lose money along the way, lose money and time and heartache and increase suffering?
The life energy right there.
Life energy.
I don't think that there's a lot of people that have experienced what it feels like to wake up on a daily basis, see another email from an attorney. 4 years, 4 years of going and understanding you're trying to save time, even though you don't want to deal with it. And it kind of is like kicking the can down the road. And people are getting paid this entire time.
Right.
So once you finally kick the can down the road where you're in mediation before going to trial, if that's the case, go to mediation, and they're going to cost you a couple days, will cost you 10, 20 grand. Easy.
Yep.
And even if, to the listeners out there, I'm not emphasizing that you have to use Bill. All I'm saying is that there are people like Bill you can bring into the fold to kind of help put the pin back in the grenade.
Right.
And it could save you 50% of what your bill was just by having them there for a couple hours. Had I had or known that there were people like you out there, I absolutely would have went after it because, again, like I brought up before, this is your profit, people. All of a sudden, that $20,000 isn't going to the attorney. You actually get to keep 10 because you were smart enough and you brought the right people into the room. And so taking that next step, is, I don't think people know that it's available.
Yeah, they don't. And they also are trying, and the attorneys, they're doing their profession, which is trying to fight to the best of the letter of the law for their person. Whether it's true or not, that's not what they're focused on. They're focused on how can I fight for my client's advocacy? And if the client is going after fairness and client is going after fairness, or the client is going after consideration, or if the client is going after respect, those are all different price points. How much money do you want to spend for respect? And if you think about it, well, not too much. Can I get a t-shirt that has respect written on top and keep the 100,000? And the answer is, yeah, you can. In a typical argument, I try to get the both parties to get used to the sentence, that didn't go so well. We said things happened that didn't go so well. Why? Because they didn't go so well. Somebody got hurt here, somebody's pain. It didn't go so well how you suffered, how you got the pain that you did. It didn't go so well how the suffering that followed that. So, I've settled cases, $1 million cases for, pennies on the dollar because it's like, that was a lot of pain. Let's not let the suffering continue as long as it did,
Yeah. Have you been able to, when there is conflicts like that where you're talking, everything outside of divorcing the business partner, have you seen people be able to reclaim their friendship, business partnership by understanding what just happened?
I don't know about reclaiming the friendship part, but I think that they've been able to reclaim appreciation about what both of them did in the startup piece and realize that there wasn't room for both of them to be in the same space because they weren't able to do a very important business function. I'm going to say it to you, you're going to start chuckling. It's one person plus another person equals 3. They take both of their things and they put it into the center spot and they are creating this third entity called the business. And relationship and good marriages, good relationships have this. I bring my stuff, you bring your stuff. I appreciation and have a gratitude. I'm pointing for those of you who are listening right now. And the other person's pointing the other. I appreciation and have gratitude for what you're bringing. We are bringing different things into the world. And therefore, we're creating this new child, this new entity. It's called a business. What does this business do? We're going to grow it. What do we have to do first? Feed it. What do we need to do next? Change the diapers. Businesses are like changing the diapers. Poop happens all the time in businesses. Crap is showing up all the time. Every 4 hours, for God's sake. They eat a bad food. All of a sudden they have mangoes and all of a sudden you smell that in the world. It's not a pretty picture early entrepreneurial in business because it's messy. And yes, this business is paying you money, but you got to keep feeding it and you got to keep cleaning it in order to do that. And that's where conflict comes. You got to clean up the mess. Got to clean it up. And that's the thing that to take away from this part of this section, for sure.
Well, I know that, people that are out there that are currently going through something like this, I will tell you 100%. If you're able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars by really understanding how to minimize this conflict and allow it to keep going forward,
right?
I'm telling you, you will be much happier. You may not get everything you wanted, but when you start doing these mediations, it's almost like nobody's really happy the way, because I've always done it with the judge. The judge comes in and the judge goes to one room and he talks to you and tells you the issues, and then he goes to the other one. And so you have this judge that he's trying to be impartial, but you don't know. And so now you've left it in the hands of somebody else to decide. And really, it's kind of back to this story where they cut the baby in two and said, which half do you want?
It's like, yeah, nobody's happy. Right.
And so to save all you guys a lot of headache out there,
sure,
really think about this if you're in this zone. I know Bill has spent years and years working on these types of things. And I appreciate you being on today, Bill, because I think the value that, not just the value, but just the money that this conversation can save people that are struggling out there, it's life-changing.
You can imagine if you're on the positive side of this, you're saving time, you're saving money, you're saving the heartache that goes with it. So those three things, how do you save time? How do you save money? How do you save heartache? If one of the companies I work with, they just settled the lawsuit and they might have had to fire 13 of their employees because of something that these employees did. Now, how much does it cost to rehire 13 employees?
Oh, the time alone, through HR.
Time, and you're setting your company back 6 to 9 months, and then the revenue that goes with it is 9 months, maybe a year and a half. But if you keep these employees in place, even though 4 of the employees did something junky and polluted the other 13 employees, you got to reboot and reestablish trust. You've got to reboot and say, here's the honest mistake that was made. Yes, it cost us $4.3 million. So for me, a mediation like that in a room full of 90 people, because that's what I facilitated, it took me 90 minutes to reestablish all of their jobs so no one was getting fired.
Wow.
And get the rest of the 90 people to trust them. They had to trust. If you're not doing trust, you got to get out of this room, because that's what we're doing here. We're doing trust, we're doing integrity, and we want to, as a company, this is what I set down, bring bad news early. If there's some bad news, could we have it early, please? We do not want bad news late, because that lateness costs us $4.3 million. And we sort of don't want to spend that in legal fees and settlements, because that wasn't a really good thing for us to do. Now, that company, after that moment in the field of time, 18 months later, went public.
Oh, wow. So they basically switched gears right away and said, we're taking this seriously now.
That's right. I got everyone to be serious in that room. Be serious about trust. Be serious about how do you tell truth between each other. Move honesty to the top of the list. If there's anything that's suspect, that's a little wiggly, and you need some support in doing it, just talk it out with your manager. Talk it out with the owner. And the owner says, yes. The CFO says, yes, please do. We have an open door. We don't want this to happen again. And they're going like, oh my gosh, all of our jobs are safe. We don't want a company that is afraid of making mistakes or is going to get punished for mistakes.
You're telling me you were able to open the lines of communication, have them feel comfortable with you, and do all that in 90 minutes?
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible, Bill.
My favorite moment, because there's four different things that I took them through, but my favorite moment was I role played with the CEO. I played the role of the 13 people that were going to get fired, and the CEO played himself, and I role played as, hey, for the 13 people, it's okay if I play your part. They're not going to say no.
Yeah, totally. They want
go ahead.
You be the martyr.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, listen, we met the need for financial security ahead of the company's needs. We met our own needs for commissions at the expense of the company. I said that right to the CEO in front of all of everybody then. Everybody goes, yeah, that's what they did. And he says, yeah, our incentive plans had us set us up so we needed to drive the numbers by the end of the quarter. And we weren't able to fully do that unless we did this other thing, which was a little shady, and we got caught doing it. You see the difference? It's like, oh my gosh.
How did the CEO react to the...
Totally did a stellar job. He says, nobody's getting fired in this room. We're all going to be in this together. He literally set the path. I basically put a softball for him to hit on a tee, which is hit this ball, step up here and say, we are going in this direction. Of course, he's living in some mansion on the beach right now, but that's because, he was able to take his company worldwide, and get, stock market money to do it. All he had to do was replicate the 4 notebooks that he had been developing up to that point. It's like,
yeah, there's a lot of cannabis companies that have either done that or tried that out of Canada over the last couple of years. It was really big about 2 years ago. They were all going public, and I think there was a lot of people that were not really understanding of what going public entails and really everything behind it. And I feel for those guys out there, because I think that they could have, the problem is getting that money. I don't want to veer too far off, but getting money that is so damn challenging for our industry. And when you have this harmonious 90 people coming to the table, all working together, it's so incredible what they could do in 18 months, because they were pretty much at ground zero, right?
That's right. That's right. It really wiped them out. They had to go back to their investors to cover the lawsuit. The investors had to pony up. They were in the room too. because it was their pocketbook that was writing, their check and stuff. And literally, if you think about, 13 people, at 50,000 a throw to hire, or even it was closer for these were a little more skilled, maybe 75K to rehire those folks, it's $500,000 that I just saved them, and the time. And the time is just to reset the organization with a new committed narrative of accountability. And once you're in that space, it's like, yeah, we made a mistake. It was a horrific one, but not horrific enough for us not to come back from.
Yeah, that's such a deep hole, it sounds like. The picture you paint is like they were close to losing everybody's money, their whole company, and all of a sudden they made some big changes. They brought in somebody like you. And I mean, how does that make you feel to bring that kind of
inspired, and a great sense of gratitude that, I've practiced my skill. I was lucky enough to study with an international mediator that would fly to war-torn countries. So I've incorporated his skills into the skills that I've gotten from some other mentors. And it just allows a great deal of peace and harmony. I've facilitated divorce mediations, facilitated the company ones, nonprofits, board members. I did a board member group one time and facilitated them through stuff, and assessed the talent inside an organization. So there's been a bunch of years that I've spent doing this stuff. And the main thing is to know, for your entrepreneurs, the people listening, please, it doesn't have to be me, but you can imagine what it would be like if you get somebody with the same skill or experience or fit for you, and you have a great deal of trust to get them going, and then they can get it across the line. The time and money you will save. It's just a little wacky, but it's real, and it's real dollars, and it can be measured. And then the suffering goes down. The pain's still there, but the suffering goes down.
Well, I say let's reduce the suffering. I tell you what.
Oh, man.
Well, Bill, it's been great having you on here. I think you had some great points you threw out there and gave me a lot to think about as well on all the future endeavors that I take on. If anybody's interested in reaching out to you, Bill, what's the best way to contact you or reach you?
Yeah, I can be reached through my website, which is billstierle.com, STIERLE. On there's my email address, bill@corporateculturedevelopment, all one word, .com. And also, they should be able to find my contact information. My assistant, Jennifer, her phone number's on there as well. So you can book some time with me to get some support.
Awesome. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show today. There was some great points that were made. Not only that, but, I hope it gave you guys stuff to think about out there. I would challenge you, if there's a specific situation that you would like me to dive into, that's something that you're going through, I would be more than happy to talk to Bill about it and maybe get you some help. Or at least try to point you in the right direction. So, I challenge you guys to go to my website, plantproblem.com. Go to this episode and say, hey, I'd love to see this on here because I am losing my mind right now. Or I feel it's something is happening and something is coming. And I feel it. I don't know what it's going to be, but I see the writing on the wall. How do I avoid smacking into the wall? So, Bill, awesome having you on. I look forward to talking to you in the future. I definitely...
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some people that are like, I've got this going on and I'd love to talk to you about that more. Please visit plantproblem.com. Check out all the episodes, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. And thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
You've just listened to another insightful episode of Plant Problems. If you like what you heard so far, don't forget to tell your friends and colleagues. For additional resources or to leave a review, head over to plantproblem.com. Join us again next week on Plant Problems with Tony Frischknecht. We look forward to having conversations with you as we go along this journey.